yeah, somehow I have to tell you a story. Yeah. You know, when I was a small boy in Flores, my father told me a lot of stories when I was small. And one of the stories I remember most is a story about a painter who wanted to create a masterpiece. Yeah? And in creating his masterpiece, he decided to paint Jesus and his 12 disciples. But in painting Jesus and his 12 disciples for his masterpiece, he needed models. Yeah? So yeah, first he searched for a guy to be Jesus in his painting. And then he found one. And that guy was mainly selected for all the good things he did in his life. So that's why he was selected as Jesus. And then he found somebody to be Peter, to be Paul, to be John, and so on in his painting. But after 15 odd long years, he still didn't finish his painting because he still needed one last model, and that was Judas. Yeah. Yeah. And he was searching for Judas everywhere. He went to the beach, he went to the mountain, he went to the market, he was searching for Judas everywhere, but he found none. He couldn't find one. So then he decided to move to the next town, still in search for Judas. And then one night he went out drinking in a bar or something. And when he was half drunk, he started telling stories about his masterpiece, about his big projects of painting Jesus and his 12 disciples, and that he still needed one last model. And one of the fellow drinkers in the bar said, "Hey, why don't you go to the prison? Maybe you can find somebody in the prison to be Judas." And the painter thought, "Wow, that's a marvelous idea. I never thought of it." So the following day, after having his coffee, then he went to the prison. And he asked the guards if he could have a look at all the prisoners inside the prison. And the guards said, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he went from one room to the other, and he found none. And then he asked, "Is that all? Don't you have someone else somewhere locked up?" And the guard said, "Well, actually, we still have one last prisoner, and he's locked at the back of the prison because he's the worst of all the prisoners." The painter said, "Can I have a look?" The guard said, "Well, why not? I don't see the reason why not." So then they went to the back of the prison, and when the guard opened the door, the painter said, "Yes, this is my Judas in my painting." So he said to the guard, "Can I have him in my studio? Only for 1 hour." And the guard said, "That's not possible, because this guy is the worst criminal over here, and it's almost impossible that you can have him in your studio." But the painter said, "But what happened if we cuff his hands and feet? Yeah? We tie his feet and we tie his hand. Maybe it's possible." And the guard said, "Well, if his hands and feet are cuffed, then it's possible." So then the prisoner was brought to the studio, and there, just about to paint, the painter saw the prisoner, and this guy was crying and crying and crying and crying, and he cried so much. So the painter asked, "Why did you cry so much? What happened to you?" And the prisoner said, "Well, some 15, 16 years ago, there was also a guy a painter like you, and he wanted me to be his model, and at that time I was Jesus. Yeah.
Good story.
Yeah, Yunus, by the way, when you check there, I think I'm very sure in Jakarta you have to get your luggage. Yeah, because from here to Jakarta you fly Garuda and